Hello and welcome to Let Me Talk to My Customer. I am your host, Chad Counts, along with my well-dressed, well-styled, well-groomed. Glad we can see you again this week, Rich.
We got video back. We got video back this week, Chad. I didn't want to. I didn't want to prevent our audience and loyal listeners from being able to see my fine mug this week.
Well, sometimes, absence makes the heart grow fonder, and that's definitely one of those cases, Rich.
All right, wonderful.
Glad to have you back, and happy birthday this week. It's been a good week, I think, for us, and continues to be a phenomenal month. March is going to be record-setting, history-making month. We got many companies that we are working with this month. We're chasing down that $1 million mark. It's going to be a battle to the finish, going to need every day we can get there. But records are going to fall this month, and that's always exciting. And so hopefully you guys are seeing that. And again, wherever you're listening to us from, we hope that you will reach out to us. We'd love to connect with you guys, and we appreciate all the listening that we get. If you're following us on YouTube, we hope that you can subscribe and like the episode and the podcast that you're listening to. If you're on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you might find us, if you want to leave a review of the podcast, that would greatly help us as well. But we hope you're enjoying the information. We are, I think, Rich, we are either at our year mark or very, very close to our whole first year of weekly podcasts and weekly
series. I think that's right. Actually, I think you might be right. If it's not this week, it's next week for sure.
Yeah, this was one of those ways that being grounded with COVID, this was a way that we could be in better contact with you guys, serve you all better. And so it's been wonderful for us. We hope you guys appreciate it. We did begin our new salesperson training this past week. We will have others available as you all have need for them. So if there's any way that we can support you, either new salespersons or existing salespersons that are struggling, pick me up, not performing at the level you want, if you've got a sales need, basically put it this way, if you see that there is unmet potential on your sales team, whether it be warranty, brokering, not closing enough, wherever that might be, we are your missing link. We are the missing ingredient. We can help unlock that potential and help you guys achieve the results and successes that many of our peers and many of our customers are experiencing right now. So find us on Facebook, Counts Business Consulting, countsbusinessconsulting.com, or LinkedIn, Chad Counts, Rich Tyler. We are on there as well. Happy to reach out and connect with you guys any way that we can. So with that, we're going to deal with a specific, not just a sales problem either. We're going to deal with a specific problem that we often have. And again, as with many of our shows, sometimes these reach out beyond business and beyond auto recycling. And this is certainly one of those topic matters or subject matters that I believe connects beyond just what we're doing. And that is overcoming barriers to improvement. Many of us, all of us as humans, have things that we want to improve on, things we know we should improve on that continue to not improve, right? We get stuck and we just get complacent, or we feel like we're unable to overcome these hurdles or obstacles or barriers within ourselves. And what we're going to use to talk about this is auto recycling, specifically sales, but this can happen in production. This can happen really anywhere across our companies where we've talked with this person, we've set an expectation. This person knows we talked with them about it and understands the expectation. And yet we sit there and we come back week after week, month after month, same result, right? And this could be about your close rate. This could be about selling warranties. This could be about brokering. This could be about cleaning up your workstation. Could be about cleaning up your bay. Could be equipping your tools. Could be catching up on your accounting and your paperwork. Whatever it is, could be losing weight. Could be exercise. Could be sleep. Right? This affects everything. All of us can relate to that. All of us have experienced this either personally or with other people. And so what we're going to talk about, at least in this context, is what we can do and how we can overcome some of these situations. Okay. This might not, I mean, we're not going to unlock the mysteries of the universe this episode, right? I'm not going to have a solve for everything. But in this particular case, this is your framework for understanding this. This is your problem solving roadmap to be able to overcome these hurdles and potentially unlock this improvement. We've said this before on other episodes. Ultimately, these changes and these improvements are going to come down to the person making these changes. And so there may be things that we try and do, and ultimately, if they fall flat, you as the owner or manager or person in their life, you have to decide that, and this really is the first step. Are you satisfied with where they're at? Number one. And if you are, then I guess you can accept that performance just staying there. If you're not, if the future steps and the other solutions that we're going to put forth don't work, you need to move on. You need to understand that, at that point, it's not the other person's fault, right? If you sit there and accept and allow this level of performance to be the standard, you have become complicit in that. Okay. So, and sometimes that's the case. Sometimes it's not worth it right now with everything else you have going on to remove this person or replace this person or what have you. But understand, long term, if you accept that you are lowering the threshold of expectation for everybody else in that department and that position, and you're allowing that to become your standard. Okay. So that's what I want to put forth there. Obviously, in personal lives, right, with family, hey, you're always going to keep them there, always going to keep them around. That's a different situation. This is business, right? And so we're planning to move forward. There are other options out there. This isn't a charity, and we don't have to just accept these levels of performance. So, Rich, let me bring you in here. This came to mind, and this happens frequently. It's not like we go a couple weeks without experiencing this, where there's a certain agenda item or metric or target area that we're looking to improve, and we find ourselves maybe a month in, maybe 2 months in, having the same conversation, seeing the same results, and it's reaching that point where this is either going to become tedious on our end and ineffective because we are saying the same things and not getting anything different. This is going to burn the other person out, and they're going to tune us out and feel stuck, or they'll resign or move on. Either way, this is coming to loggerheads. This is coming to the forefront. And so maybe you can put forth, what are some of the situations that you see happening most often where a person or a company gets stuck dealing with a particular situation?
Okay, well, let's talk about a specific that we're dealing with right now, especially in the context of what you already said is going to be a record-setting March for the vast majority of people that we're working with. When we see a team, a strong team, performing well, and then maybe one individual stands out as not necessarily cutting the mustard in a certain area, whether that's warranty sales or brokered sales or whatever the case might be, I think what we're seeing is, this may not necessarily answer your question, but I think what we see in those instances is that individual focusing a lot on whatever the negative aspects are that we're asking them to work on. And I think most recently it's been the two that I mentioned in particular, brokering and warranty.
Correct. So, there are all sorts of reasons why people do or do not do elements of their job or make changes in their personal life and things like that. That first order option is maybe they don't understand it, right? They don't understand the technical aspect of it. They don't understand the right approach or different things like that. So there can be informational. Sure. That's usually where we start. Okay, we give the person the benefit of the doubt. If I give you the right information, I give you the right steps, you're going to be able to execute this.
Right. Do you know how to do this? Do you know the details? Do you know how to execute on this? Yeah, absolutely.
More often than not, what happens if that isn't enough is there is some sort of emotional resistance to what we're asking them to do. Okay. And that can be emotional resistance in a number of different directions. So like for working out, for example, improving your physical health. I like not working out, right? Like I don't like feeling sore the next day, or there could be a lot of things that you desire more, right? I'd rather have that milkshake or that donut or what, right? Sometimes it's a case of you still desire X more than Y, right? We're asking you to do Y, but there's still too much momentum or desire to do this. Now, in the case of sales or employee work, it's typically avoidance. It's not necessarily that they desire to do something more, it's that they have either a fear or a concern or something that they're trying to avoid, right? So if I offer this to my customer, I'm going to get grilled because of, oh, when is it? Or you don't have it, or there's going to be some sort of response that they're kind of tensing up and afraid of. Sometimes when we come in, even too, we are changing a policy, we're changing mentality. They might have had a negative response from their owner or manager from previously trying to do this and having, they didn't mark it up enough, or there were certain things that they had done wrong that they were holding on to, thinking it's not worth me sticking out my neck and then getting kicked, right? So what would be some examples of, and we'll try and limit this back to sales, although I think it clearly has broader applications. What would be some fear or avoidance type of desires or concerns that you hear from salespeople in terms of why they're failing or coming up short or not opting to do certain things?
Okay, I'm just going to pull from what we're dealing with now, but working with a salesperson who doesn't want to quote the customer apart because of the fact that they're afraid it is either going to be overpriced by the time they price it to them if it's a brokered item, or if they do in fact successfully sell it, it's going to boomerang anyway.
Right. Okay. So the main thing is a fear of something going bad or going wrong, right? And either the customer is offended or taken aback by the price, or anticipating that the part's not going to be any good, or different things like that. Now, for the most part, when you are this is harder to deal with when you are like the salesperson is already crazy busy and things like that. This is one of those things that's harder to tweak. However, when you're dealing with people that are just underperforming or underutilizing, we were talking about this before we came on. There was more a part of, okay, you're trying to avoid problems, right? And I get that, and I can respect that. But right now, what you're doing is avoiding sales.
Exactly.
Right? You have plenty of time on your plate. You don't have a shortage. It's not like you're too busy, and you only want the good of the sales. You only want the easy ones, is what I'm hearing, right? Well, ultimately, as a salesperson, you can only go so far with that, and that's not really that valuable to me. I can find somebody that cherry picks and only does easy or good sales. That's not that impressive. That's not that hard. That's great. I'm glad you are doing that. At the same time, the hope is that you become a more well-rounded, developed professional, right? You have many years left in this business. Dealing with problems comes with the job. And the best salespeople don't avoid problems, but they've dealt with them enough to not be afraid of them. Okay, so let's say this happens, right? And so this is part of unpacking this. Sometimes just having that conversation of, if you have to have everything perfect before you make a sale, this is used auto parts, right? Where sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, sometimes it goes bad. You can't really sell anything if you have to have everything perfect before it gets sold, right? So you are always better off, get the sale now, assume positive, be optimistic, right? Assume that it's going to be good in dealing with the hiccups and headaches that come. You will be far more successful. And the second part of that is you'll get used to dealing with problems. You're not scared of problems. You're not trying to avoid problems. You're confident that when a problem arises, you can resolve it. So part of that is, in Rich and I's training, we can war games that, so to speak. And what I mean by that is, okay, I'm worried I'm going to be so overpriced. Okay. So you would rather not help your customer, right? Let's work through these scenarios. You would rather tell your customer no, offer them no solution, be of no value, be of no service to them, than potentially put out a price there that you don't know. You don't know if they're going to be offended by it. And work through what their expectations are. Okay. Well, let's work through a couple situations and let's see how bad it is. Let's at least be prepared to deal with that. Okay, it's $2,000. $2,000? Oh my God. No. Okay, well, what have you seen? What were you expecting? Okay, obviously we all want it for dirt cheap and we want the best possible quality, but that doesn't exist more often than not. And really our goal as salespeople is to provide them my only job is to provide them the best option I can provide them. If that is the best price, if that is the best option, I will lose no sleep. I wish I could do better. I wish I could do this, that, or the other. And ultimately, if you're going to take that road, you at least better prove to me why they would be offended by that. Mm-hmm. Right? If you want to take that tack, did you ask them what prices they've seen? Did you ask them if they found it anywhere else? They think it's too expensive as compared to what? Mm-hmm. What are their options, right? Mm-hmm. I know certain people were worried about this Range Rover price. I'm thinking, did you buy the Range Rover? I mean, do you think the person who bought the Range Rover was unaware that this is a luxury vehicle and might have, the price of the vehicle was high, but the part, that sets me off. I mean, just work through those thoughts, right? A lot of times that we're just trying to avoid something that's uncomfortable,
right?
And not realizing that avoiding what's uncomfortable, and more often than not, you're anticipating things that are uncomfortable that really aren't that bad or aren't that big of a deal, and you're anticipating it to be far worse than it is, or it's an uncomfort that you have to get used to because you're otherwise, this is kind of the end around on it. Otherwise, fine, you can stay uncomfortable, but I'm going to get uncomfortable with those results and I'm going to move on from this eventually. Mm-hmm. And that's not what I want. I don't want to have to move on from you. I don't want anything like that. I want to be able to see you make steps to improve these situations. So it would be how you would war games. That was kind of a avoidance sort of strategy. Rich, are there anything that come to mind with how you've helped people or how you see working through this? Or different resistance items with
sales? Sure. Look, there's always going to be different abilities on different teams. And whenever somebody is executing in a way that is successful and is what we want, I like a team powwow. I like to talk about, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing differently? And in the instance that I'm thinking of specifically, it's like, okay, we want employee X to broker more. Well, the star on the team brokers like a dream, has no problem moving parts in stock, out of stock, whatever. And so we ask this person that's successful at it, what are you doing? What are you doing differently? I asked this person this today. And they told me, I'm just not making any exceptions. I'm just putting a price on absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And I said, but what about all that stuff that you don't really want to sell? And they told me, doesn't matter. I'll price it anyway. Yeah. And they
even with that attitude, right? Even worst case scenario, if you said the stuff you didn't really want to sell, price it up even higher.
Exactly.
Right? Make it worth your while.
That's what they told me. That's exactly what they told me. And yeah, I mean, just that.
And at least that is something that puts first and foremost, my customer calls me with a problem. My job, I have solutions out there and I'm not offering it to them. It, to me, is unacceptable. Even if, you were having to go to somebody that was so off brand, but even then, my job is to give them the best option I can. And if my options are limited, then what's the likelihood that their options are also limited? Okay. We think sometimes we're doing them some great big favor by avoiding this altogether. And really what I'm doing is I'm not giving them a choice. I'm not giving them a choice in the matter. So you would have to be right. This goes back to, one of our first episodes, you'd have to be right 100% of the time for any of this to be accepted.
Correct.
Right. And you are clearly, we're not omniscient. We expect certain things and our customers have a different opinion, or everyone's got to have it tomorrow. And I talked to this guy and, well, he had 2 or 3 days on it. Right. We see that very often that, we're talking to them. That's always a big concern for salespeople, that they need it tomorrow. And I'm worried to offer them a broker part because I can't get it to them tomorrow. I'm like, okay, but guess what? You quote like 30 items a day and these people don't call you back that day or tomorrow to order it all the time, right? Stop assuming what the problem is, right? It is your job to offer the solution, the best solution. And if the problem arises or comes up on the conversation, you have that conversation with your customer. It's not difficult. It becomes a lot easier to buy a day, or it becomes a lot easier to say, oh, that sounds expensive. Okay, what else have you seen? I'm not going to negotiate against myself. Where else have you been able to find this? What other prices have you seen?
I think a lot of that conversation also has to do with setting our customers' expectations to reality. And again, thinking about the context of this particular salesperson who does broker very well, I said, look, we want this other salesperson to be able to move crash parts as well as you do. How is it that you're selling a $100 fender, adding freight and a markup, and then selling it for almost twice as much as your original cost? And she said, because I tell them, I'm like, look, you can expect there to be as much freight on this as the part costs and still sells it.
Yeah, it's as simple as let the customer be the one to say no. I mean, if at the end of the day, it's not a desirable solution, let them be the ones to say that.
Don't tell them it's an undesirable solution.
Exactly right. That does you no good, right? And the same with, well, I got to see. Let me send my guy out there. Let me check. It's like, are you busy right now? Is your production department busy right now? Why? They've got enough paid work, sold work to be doing. Why am I sending them doing extra stuff? If you see it on the screen, it says it's good. It's listed, it's good. It's listed, it's no problem. Sell the part. That's your job, is to sell the part. They will handle the problems. And if something happens, it is not asking you as a salesperson too much for you to communicate, oh, there was additional damage or that we need additional time, things like that. That's service. Okay. If you want to say I give good service, I communicate well, you want to say all these things about yourself. That's really easy to say when you don't have problems. Okay. Where that comes into play is, how do you deal with these exceptions? How do you deal when things arise? And that's what enables you to grow. Then you offer all the solutions up front because I can handle any disruptions or any exceptions that come up down the road. And that's ultimately what happens. Now, moving beyond this, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody that's at least willing to have this. And this isn't easy. I mean, we have tried this conversation with some people that have no interest. They don't want to go there. They don't want to talk about what their gut is. They don't want to talk about the F word, the feelings, or anything like that. Like that's a big deal to have feelings. But yeah, I mean, whatever the barrier is, it could be habit, right? It could just be you've been at this 20 years and you have habits. That's fine. It took 20 years to build that habit. It's going to take time to change it. But we at least need you, if you're having some sort of concern or you're anticipating, once we bring this up, at least be willing to have that conversation. Mm-hmm. Be willing to, okay, let's take what you're worried about. Let's take what you're fearful of and let's shift this. Let's try some things. Let's rehearse this here. How scary is that? Okay, this is a place where you can do this in training. You could do this with your team. And the things that you thought were so worrisome or hard to overcome or worried that the customer was going to react negatively, this is how you deal with it. And let's do that a couple times. So at least when you deal with the customer, it's no big deal. It's something you've practiced, you've rehearsed. Okay.
Yeah, and it's only the most resistant, I feel like, that won't even engage in that.
Yeah.
That kind of be a telling point as well.
Right, exactly. So if you're somebody that is, if you are willing to at least think about it, offer honest and constructive feedback,
Mhm.
these changes really are easy to overcome for the
Mhm.
most part. The habitual ones take the longest, but honestly, if it's just a fear of rejection or fear of making a bad offer or being embarrassed or anything like that, most of those, if you're willing to take them on, those are pretty easy to adapt to.
Mhm.
It just needs exposure, it just needs rehearsal, it just needs practice to get over that initial fear. And then once you start doing it, it's really no big deal. I mean, honestly, I mean, you look at what those who are successful and who do this, you don't see a great deal of like, oh my goodness, they've dealt with some horrors. It's more like they just have developed confidence and they're not concerned with all these negatives and potential pitfalls. Um, so this goes back to, timid salespeople have skinny kids. And if you're going to be timid, you're going to allow the customer to determine your rate of success.
Mm.
If you are willing to be optimistic, if you are willing to be courageous and doing things that are uncomfortable for you, you're going to find you're going to have great success. We see it time and time again. Go back to the weight loss example. Those who are willing to take on the discomfort, those who are willing to give up certain things that they want, but they know are long-term negatives, anybody can get themselves in better shape. Anybody can improve their quality and their health and everything like that. Sales is no different. If you are willing to take on the right mindset, you're willing to work on your mindset, do a few things that are uncomfortable, asking for the sale, assuming everything is good, being confident enough to deal with problems when they arise, as opposed to avoiding problems, avoiding conflict. You'll find that they're not as difficult as you thought they were. And if you don't even have to be perfect every time, right? Even when you first start doing this, even if there's some hiccups, guess what? You're still going to be making more progress than you were before.
Mm.
And some of the biggest shifts, changes we've seen for salespeople in terms of performance, they finally dropped their concerns. They finally, I was worried about this, I was worried about that. Come back to them and say, what happened? Well, I just stopped worrying about it. I just started pressing forward. I just started being solution focused. And that takes time. It's not like some people do that naturally, but for many of us, that takes work and effort and consistency. So that's doable. I want those who are out there, a lot of times where companies make the mistake is we've had this conversation. I feel ineffective. This person is ineffective. Forget it. I'm just moving on. I'm doing something different. And that's the wrong approach. That lowers the bar for the whole company.
Mhm.
That allows low performance for that person.
Mhm.
That ultimately really sees the other person as, that person is not capable. They just can't do it. It takes a lesser view of that person. So there's a lot that I dislike about allowing these barriers or obstacles to sit and fester. They're not what's best for me. They're not what's best for the other person. And so I find that really unsatisfactory to let that linger. But more often than not, it lingers there because people don't understand the next step. And so it takes more time, takes more conversation, it takes a little bit of uncomfort. You have to wade into that a little bit with certain people. And you have to have the trust and relationship with that person to get them to fess up, say, what's going on? When you reach this point and you step up and you choke or you don't do it, what are you thinking about? What is happening? What's holding you back? You know what you need to do here and you refuse to do it. So explain that to me, and not in a threatening, berating way, but say, hey, neither of us can move forward until we figure that out. Okay. So let's just have an honest conversation.
Yeah, investigating in a curious way.
Yeah, exactly. So got to have the right posture and mentality. And as long as they know you want what's best for them, you want to see them improve, it really shouldn't be a fearful conversation for them. And it's very illuminating too. If you try and go that route and somebody is completely abrasive and not interested, then to me, that's a clear sign of, hey, I'm looking for somebody else I can invest my time in and who wants to get better. right? Because I don't know any successful business owners that ever just say, oh, we've reached the pinnacle. I'm not looking to move forward anywhere else, right? So you have to carry that forward with your team. You have to carry that forward with other people. So, okay, we'll close on that. We hope you found that insightful, and hopefully even personally, you can see situations where that is a challenge or can be helpful. We always need other people to help unpack some of these things that we get stuck on or we get resistant to. And so having those people in your life is a huge benefit. Having mentors in your life, even on the business side, who are willing to call you out on your barriers and your blind spots, that's very valuable. That's where growth happens. And it's something that many people just think, oh, I can't do this. And it's not true. Don't limit yourself. Don't limit other people. See the potential, do the work, and you'll be rewarded for it if both parties are open to that conversation. So hopefully, again, you guys are seeing record sales this month. You should be. It's a phenomenal month, great selling conditions. Everything is looking really good. And if any way Rich and myself can help impact your team, help you guys unlock more potential, more opportunity, we'd love to be a part of that. So don't hesitate to reach out. Again, we hope you'll subscribe to our YouTube channel or subscribe on iTunes or Spotify to the podcast. Make that something that's a part of your weekly routine. And yeah, we hope to hear from you down the road, whether that's Facebook, or accountsbusinessconsulting.com. We would love to hear from you all. We hope you all are doing well. And here's to some record-setting days. We got a couple weeks left in March to finish off some records. And we hope you guys enjoy the chase as much as we are. So until